What if everything that makes you feel good is actually what's keeping you enslaved? In a world overflowing with entertainment, convenience, and comfort, the word freedom has become more of a marketing slogan than a lived reality. We scroll, we click, we consume. We chase likes, notifications, and dopamine hits thinking we are choosing, thinking we are in control. But are we? Aldous Huxley once warned that the most dangerous form of control isn't the one that uses fear, it's the one that uses pleasure. He imagined a world not of chains and whips, but of distractions so seductive that people would never even realize they were being controlled. A society where citizens are so entertained, so overstimulated, so happy, that they no longer question the system or themselves. Does that sound familiar? Today, we wake up with our phones, fall asleep with Netflix, and fill every silent moment with noise. We've been conditioned to believe that discomfort is the enemy, that boredom is a failure, that the absence of pleasure is something to be fixed, not felt. But this endless chase for stimulation may be the very thing numbing our humanity. Because freedom isn't the ability to do whatever feels good. Real freedom demands awareness. It requires discomfort. It asks us to sit with silence, to confront our inner chaos, to ask questions the algorithm never will. And that kind of freedom, it doesn't trend. So here's the paradox. The more you pursue pleasure without pause, the more you become a prisoner to it. You're not addicted to pleasure, you're addicted to escape from pain, from meaning, from yourself. And that's exactly what this video is about. We're not here to demonize pleasure. We're here to expose the invisible contract you've signed with comfort and to ask, was it worth your soul? If that hits something deep, stay with me, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Aldous Huxley once wrote, "No one is more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free." It's a haunting sentence, one that doesn't yell, it whispers. Because real slavery doesn't always come with chains. Sometimes it comes with convenience, with entertainment, with pleasure that numbs just enough to keep you quiet. When people think of dystopia, their minds often jump to George Orwell's 1984, a brutal regime of surveillance, censorship, and punishment. In Orwell's nightmare, the state dominates by fear. Citizens are watched, policed, and silenced. But Huxley offered a different warning, one far more subtle and far more terrifying. In Brave New World, control isn't enforced through terror, it's achieved through seduction. No one needs to burn books in Huxley's world, because no one reads them. No one questions authority not because they're afraid to, but because they're too distracted to care. The population is pacified not by the threat of violence, but by a constant flood of pleasure, drugs, sex, superficial entertainment. A society so busy feeling good that it forgets to feel deeply. Now look around you. We are not being dragged into submission by tyrants with guns. We are being lulled into submission by screens, likes, and algorithms. It's not Big Brother watching you, it's your device learning you. The modern citizen doesn't resist because they're terrified. They don't resist because they're entertained. And in that numbness, they believe they're free. But freedom isn't just about the absence of force. It's about the presence of awareness. And that's exactly what's missing. Let's be honest. How often do we pause and question the systems that shape our daily decisions? How often do we choose solitude over stimulation? Reflection over reaction? We don't, because discomfort has become intolerable and comfort has become king. You reach for your phone before you even realize you're bored. You binge a series not because it inspires you, but because it saves you from silence. You scroll through curated lives online while avoiding your own. And in all of this, you feel free because the bars of your prison are made of velvet. Dopamine has become the currency of modern control. It's no longer necessary to force compliance when people will voluntarily seek the very things that enslave them. Social media, pornography, endless entertainment each delivers a hit of chemical satisfaction. But in chasing those highs, you begin to erode the very part of you that questions, that dreams, that rebels. And that's the genius of Huxley's vision. The dystopia is not imposed, it is chosen. The drug in Brave New World was called soma, a substance that gave people a holiday from reality. Today, our soma doesn't come in pill form. It's digital, it's cultural, it's a lifestyle. Every time we avoid discomfort by reaching for a screen, every time we silence our inner voice with another dopamine fix, we are deepening the illusion. We are convincing ourselves that we are happy, when what we really are is distracted. And what's the cost of that distraction? We stop noticing the cage, worse, we start decorating it. We embrace our servitude as if it were a privilege. We chase pleasure like it's the purpose of life. And slowly, without resistance, we trade our freedom for convenience, our depth for ease, and our potential for comfort. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you sat in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts? Not the voice in your head repeating what you've seen online, but your actual self, the one buried beneath the noise. Can you still hear it? Because that's what freedom truly requires. The ability to face your life without a filter, to feel pain without numbing it, to exist without needing to be constantly entertained. Huxley's nightmare was not that we would be oppressed, but that we would be so immersed in pleasure, so flooded with distractions, that we'd stop caring whether we were free at all, that we'd mistake comfort for liberation, that we'd sell our sovereignty for a dopamine drip. And unless we wake up, that's exactly where we're headed. So no, we're not living in 1984. There's no iron fist, no ministry of truth. But that doesn't mean we're free. We are living in Brave New World, but make no mistake, there's nothing brave about it. It is a world where pleasure is power, where noise is loyalty, and where silence is rebellion. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're here. Because some part of you, however faint, is still resisting, still asking questions, still sensing that something isn't right. That's not a weakness, that's awareness. And it might be the first step toward remembering what real freedom feels like. In the mid-20th century, psychologist B.F. Skinner made a discovery that changed how we understand human behavior, though few grasp its implications fully. Through a series of experiments with rats and pigeons, Skinner demonstrated that behavior could be engineered through a simple mechanism: reward and punishment. Give a rat a pellet every time it presses a lever, and it learns to press that lever compulsively. Shock it when it turns left, and soon it avoids that direction entirely. This he called operant conditioning, a system of behavioral modification rooted not in conscious choice, but in environmental manipulation. Now pause for a second. You may think, well, I'm not a rat in a cage. But what if your life isn't as different from that lab experiment as you believe? What if your daily behaviors, what you click, buy, scroll, watch, are the result of decades of psychological refinement, not of your free will, but of invisible reinforcements designed to control you, one dopamine hit at a time? Huxley understood this long before Silicon Valley weaponized your attention. In Brave New World, the control wasn't enforced through guns or fear, it was maintained through soma, a perfect drug that offered euphoria without consequences, distraction without depth. It was taken daily, like vitamins. It cured anxiety, killed existential angst, and turned rebellion into apathy. The result? A society of smiling slaves, grateful for their chains. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Our modern version of soma doesn't come in a bottle. It comes through apps, streaming platforms, porn sites, and prescription bottles. It's the endless scrolling of TikTok, the autoplay loop of Netflix, the numbing pulse of Instagram stories. The warm sedation of benzodiazepines and antidepressants is prescribed not to heal, but to keep you functional, not to awaken you, but to keep you going just enough to not ask why you're doing any of it. We are living in the age of operant conditioning. Every like, every notification, every short-form video is a pellet. Every delay, rejection, or silence is a shock, and the system watches, learns, and adjusts. Your feed is not curated for your taste. It's engineered for your dependency. It rewards your engagement and punishes your withdrawal. And most terrifying of all, it works. The science behind this isn't new. It's just been digitized and weaponized. Skinner believed that through conditioning, we could shape a better society, a utopia of behavioral predictability. He was optimistic. Huxley was not. While Skinner imagined scientific control as a path to harmony, Huxley saw it as a gateway to invisible tyranny, a system where people were not coerced into submission but trained to love it. And isn't that what we're seeing? No one's forcing you to binge-watch shows you don't even like. No one's making you swipe endlessly through strangers' lives. No one's holding a gun to your head, telling you to check your notifications every 12 seconds. And yet, you do. You obey. Not because someone tells you to, but because you've been trained to. The reward is comfort. The punishment is discomfort. And over time, we've learned to fear discomfort more than we fear losing ourselves. That's the danger of voluntary servitude. It's not just that you're being controlled, it's that you believe you're choosing it. You think you're exercising freedom when you're actually expressing conditioning. You think, I feel like watching something mindless tonight. But the truth is, the desire didn't originate in you. It was planted, shaped, nurtured. Your preferences are echoes of systems that profit from your distraction. This is not a conspiracy. It's psychology. It's measurable, observable, and if you're honest with yourself, undeniable. And let's be clear, not all pleasure is manipulation. Joy is a necessary part of life. So is entertainment, connection, and laughter. The problem begins when pleasure becomes the only lens through which we view value, when we equate comfort with good and discomfort with bad, when the pursuit of ease replaces the pursuit of meaning. Because meaning is hard. It asks you to feel, to struggle, to be uncomfortable long enough to hear what your life is trying to tell you. But you can't do that if you're medicating your mind with constant stimulation. What Skinner proved in the lab, tech companies and social engineers have perfected in the marketplace. They don't need to control your actions directly, they just need to control the environment around them. And you, like the rat in the box, will press the lever on your own, again and again and again, until one day you don't even remember why. Huxley feared this more than anything. That society would evolve into a global Skinner box. That humanity would become so addicted to rewards, so allergic to pain, that they'd stop asking the only question that matters. Is this freedom, or is it obedience disguised as choice? And so, we return to the core truth. The most dangerous chains are the ones we put on ourselves, not out of fear, but out of habit. You are not weak for being susceptible to pleasure. You are human. But the question is, do you see the pattern? Can you step outside the box long enough to question it? Because awareness is the first crack in the glass, and from there the walls start to shake. Aldous Huxley warned us with chilling clarity. We are drowning in a sea of irrelevance. Not being crushed, not being silenced, but drowning softly, quietly, painlessly in things that don't matter. And that's the real tragedy of modern pleasure. Not that it exists, but that it's endless, shallow, and anesthetizing. When pleasure becomes constant, it ceases to be pleasure. It becomes a sedative, a psychological Novocaine that numbs not just pain, but presence, awareness, and resilience. The human psyche, much like the body, requires contrast to grow. We need stress to develop strength, friction to find direction, and discomfort to generate depth. But what happens when we systematically avoid all of it? We become fragile. This is the cost no one talks about, that in insulating ourselves from discomfort, we've also insulated ourselves from growth, from meaning, from maturity. We've been conditioned to equate pain with failure, silence with loneliness, boredom with lack, so we medicate with pleasure. But this self-medication is producing a generation that has forgotten how to sit with itself. A culture that no longer knows how to wait, how to endure, how to reflect, because we're always rushing toward the next dopamine fix. And dopamine is no longer a biological function, it's a business model. Social media platforms, video games, streaming services, even our news cycles, they're all engineered to exploit the brain's reward circuitry, not to inform you, not to inspire you, but to keep you hooked, to turn your psychology into profit, to make sure that silence feels like withdrawal and discomfort feels like danger. And it's working. Look around. Attention spans are collapsing. Mental illness is skyrocketing. Anxiety, depression, insomnia. These aren't isolated struggles anymore. They are symptoms of a deeper existential sickness. A life lived too fast, too distracted, too shallow. A life where we have everything we want and still feel empty. Because constant pleasure doesn't fulfill the soul, it starves it. Pleasure without meaning is just noise, and the more noise you consume, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. The harder it becomes to distinguish your true desires from the ones planted by marketing teams, algorithms, and social pressures. You begin to forget what you loved before someone sold it to you. But there's another, more subtle cost. One is far more dangerous. The loss of emotional resilience. When every negative feeling is immediately soothed with entertainment, food, scrolling, or substances, we never develop the internal tools to face discomfort. We short-circuit the process of inner growth. We don't allow ourselves to feel long enough to learn from what we're feeling. And without that feedback loop, we stay stuck emotionally underdeveloped, spiritually stagnant, psychologically brittle. We break easily. We panic at silence. We run from pain, and over time, we lose something even more critical, the ability to connect. Because connection, real, soul-level connection, requires presence. It requires stillness, attention, and vulnerability. But a mind addicted to stimulation is incapable of those things. It's always looking elsewhere, always avoiding the now. This is why so many people feel alone in a world more connected than ever. We've mistaken accessibility for intimacy. We've confused digital interaction with emotional connection. And now we don't just feel disconnected from others, we feel disconnected from ourselves. We've become strangers in our own minds, tourists in our own hearts, and pleasure, ironically, has become the wall between us and our inner life. Huxley saw this coming. He didn't fear a tyrant who would burn books. He feared a culture so flooded with triviality that no one would care to read. He didn't fear censorship. He feared distraction. Because when the mind is constantly stimulated, it forgets how to question, how to think, how to feel. And that's exactly where we are. We don't need permission to numb ourselves, we do it voluntarily. We flood our brains with meaningless content, moment after moment, in the name of relaxation. But what are we relaxing from? The uncomfortable truth? The whisper of purpose? The calling that asks more from us than passivity? We've become excellent at escaping but terrible at arriving. We've mastered the art of pleasure but forgotten the discipline of presence. And in this imbalance, we've sacrificed something sacred, the capacity to live fully, courageously, and consciously. The irony is brutal. We pursue pleasure because we want to feel alive, but the more we chase it, the more disconnected we become from life itself. Real life is messy. It's imperfect. It includes boredom, sadness, failure, and waiting. It includes uncertainty and silence. And that's what makes the moments of real joy so meaningful. They are earned, not engineered. But when joy is replaced by constant stimulation, when every emotional signal is drowned in distraction, the human spirit begins to suffocate, not violently, not all at once, but gradually, like a slow, invisible erosion. And so we drown, not in suffering, but in irrelevance. We laugh at memes while our hearts break quietly. We binge content while our dreams gather dust. We chase validation while our souls forget how to recognize real fulfillment. We are busy, but not alive. Surrounded by options, but starved for meaning. This is the cost of endless pleasure. Not pain, not punishment, but numbness. The slow death of the self. And if that scares you, it should. Because if we don't reclaim our capacity to feel, to suffer, to wait, to wonder, then no amount of pleasure will ever make us whole again. There comes a moment in every life, quiet, subtle, often uncomfortable, when something breaks through the noise. A pause, a question, a flicker of clarity that whispers, something is not right. Maybe that moment is now. Because if we continue down this path, this dopamine-drenched, convenience-obsessed, pleasure-worshipping path, then Huxley's warning will not remain a work of fiction. It will be our future. And in that future, humanity will divide. Not by race, not by class, not even by ideology, but by awareness. On one side, there will be those who remain joyfully chained, who embrace their digital distractions, who consume without question, who mistake sedation for satisfaction. These are the citizens of comfort. Their lives will seem content, even enviable. They will smile often, perform well, and function obediently. But beneath the surface, they will have traded their autonomy for stimulation, their agency for ease, their humanity for harmony. They will be the slaves who never realize they're enslaved. And then on the other side, there will be the few who refuse to go quietly. The ones who choose the harder path, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence. The ones who dare to face discomfort without running, who choose solitude over constant noise, who hunger for truth more than distraction. These are the citizens of freedom, not because they live without struggle, but because they live with awareness. They see the chains, they feel their weight, but they also choose to break them every day in small, intentional acts of defiance. It is not an easy path. It is not glamorous, and it will never trend. But it is the only path that leads back to something real. This is the line being drawn not by politicians or elites, but by the architecture of our own attention. The systems are already in place. The algorithms already know you better than you know yourself. And the next step, whether we slip into sedation or step into awareness, will determine not just the quality of our lives, but the essence of who we become. And so we must ask, are we still human, or are we becoming programmable organisms optimized for compliance? Frederick Douglass, A man who endured the horrors of slavery and fought to reclaim his freedom once said, "When a slave becomes content in his slavery, he has renounced his humanity." That is the most terrifying possibility. Not that we'll suffer, but that we'll stop caring, that we'll grow comfortable in our cages, that we'll forget what it means to want to be free. Because freedom is not instinctual. It's not automatic. It is chosen, protected, fought for, especially in times when no one else seems to care. The modern world will not punish you for being unconscious. It will reward you. It will call you productive, well-adjusted, successful. It will offer likes, promotions, convenience, and validation. It will make your sedation look like a triumph. But awareness, that's different. Awareness will isolate you. It will make you see things others don't want to see. It will make you feel pain most people are too busy avoiding. But awareness is the birth of sovereignty. It is the beginning of real life. It's looking at your phone and asking, "Why am I reaching for this right now?" It's noticing the craving for comfort and asking, "What am I trying to escape?" It's hearing the silence and choosing to stay with it, not because it's pleasant, but because it's honest. This is not about rejecting all pleasure or becoming ascetic. It's about reclaiming your right to choose to feel, to think, outside the framework designed for your obedience. The wake-up call is not a scream, it's a whisper, a subtle inner revolt that says, "I want more than this. I don't want to be entertained to death. I want my mind back, my time back, myself back." And once you hear that voice, truly hear it, you can't unhear it. You can't go back to sleep. You can pretend for a while, maybe. But the veil has already been lifted. The truth has already sunk in. And that's where the journey begins. A journey of detoxing from dopamine, of making peace with boredom, of facing pain without immediately numbing it, of spending time alone, not to punish yourself, but to remember yourself. It is a radical, sacred act to reclaim your mind in a world that profits from your distraction. To look at the machine and say, "No more. No more autoplay. No more mindless scrolling. No more swallowing pleasure like a tranquilizer." Because the moment you start choosing awareness over anesthesia, everything changes. You stop being a target. You start becoming a person again, a real one, with a spine, with a soul. And yes, it's hard, but that's what makes it real. That's what makes it yours. So the question is no longer, are we free? The question is, do we still want to be? Because if we do, we have to prove it, not with slogans, not with opinions, but with action, with silence, with resistance, with the daily conscious choice to remain awake in a world that would love nothing more than to lull us back to sleep. And if you're still listening, if you're still here, then maybe you're already waking up. And that changes everything. Turn off the noise. Sit in silence. Feel the discomfort. That's where your freedom begins. Not in the next video, not in the next hit of dopamine, but right here in the uncomfortable stillness you've spent your entire life trying to avoid. We've been trained to believe that freedom is something given to us, that it's a product of external conditions, governments, rights, mobility, access. But the truth is more inconvenient and more powerful. Real freedom begins within, and it begins the moment you're willing to stop running from yourself. Freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. That's indulgence. It's not scrolling endlessly through choices that numb you. That's a distraction. Real freedom is having the strength to confront your own shadow without needing to look away. It's the courage to sit with pain without needing to sedate it. It's choosing consciousness over comfort again and again. and that choice won't be celebrated. It won't get likes. It won't trend, but it will wake you up. Because the problem was never pleasure itself. Pleasure is part of life. Joy is sacred. Laughter is medicine. Connection is essential. But when pleasure becomes your primary compass, when every decision is filtered through what feels good right now, you lose your direction, you lose your resilience, and eventually you lose yourself. That's the quiet erosion Huxley tried to warn us about, not through violence or censorship, but through overindulgence, through a society that drowns the soul in comfort until it forgets how to speak. So how do we find our way back? We begin with presence. We unplug not out of anger, but out of reverence. We sit in silence, not because it's easy, but because it's real. We let the anxiety surface, the boredom sting, the existential dread rise, because those feelings are signals, not enemies. They are calls from your deeper self asking to be heard. We listen. And in listening, we remember that freedom is not the absence of difficulty. It's the willingness to face difficulty without collapsing, to be in pain and not reach for the numbing agent, to be in confusion and not chase instant clarity, to be lost and still choose to feel. That is the beginning of strength, of sovereignty, of awakening. But here's the deeper truth. You cannot be free if you refuse to meet your own shadow. You cannot find peace while hiding from the parts of yourself you've labeled unacceptable. The internal prison is built from the very things you're afraid to feel. So feel them. Feel the loneliness you've masked with screens. Feel the sadness you've buried under productivity. Feel the rage you've swallowed for the sake of being okay. Because in those feelings is your map. In that, discomfort is your key. You don't need more stimulation. You need more stillness. You don't need another answer. You need space to hear your own. And no one can give that to you, not your partner, not your therapist, not your favorite philosopher. It's something you reclaim quietly when you choose to stop outsourcing your experience of life. This is the inner revolution, the one no one sees, the one with no flags, no slogans, no applause. It's just you, facing you. But that's where everything changes, because the moment you stop numbing, stop distracting, stop chasing, you begin to feel alive again. Not artificially alive, but grounded, real, whole. You begin to rebuild trust with yourself. You begin to make choices not from compulsion, but from clarity. And slowly, moment by moment, you begin to taste a freedom that no system, no algorithm, no society can touch. The kind of freedom that doesn't scream, "I'm free," but simply breathes. So no, you don't need to escape the world. You need to escape the illusion. The lie that says freedom is ease, that pleasure is purpose, that stimulation is meaning. You're not broken. You're just overstimulated, overinformed, overentertained. And what you need is not more but less. Less noise, less numbing, less pretending, because what you're looking for has been waiting inside you all along, beneath the chaos, beneath the comfort, beneath the conditioning. And it speaks in whispers, not in notifications. So today, give yourself the gift that no one else can offer. Turn everything off, just for a moment, and listen. You may not hear anything at first. That's okay. Stay there. Breathe. Feel the ache, the quiet, the presence. That's your life. That's yourself. That's your freedom. And once you touch it, you'll never be satisfied with chains again, even the ones that feel good. If this video stirred something inside you, if even for a moment you felt the fog lift, don't let it fade. Hit the like button to help more people wake up. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next dive into the uncomfortable truths that set us free. And more importantly, leave a comment below. What part hit you the hardest? What truth did you feel, not just hear? Let's make the comments section a space for real reflection, not noise, but meaning. Because awakening doesn't happen alone. It happens in conversation, in courage, in the community. And this is just the beginning.